Looks like we're all here. Good morning.
Hello, Kiva.
So are we ready to start, Matt?
Yes, I believe so. I think everyone's here.
Righty-ho. Well, welcome all to the November edition of the Development and Environmental Services Committee. Do we have any apologies?
Neil?
No. We'll move on to the adoption of the minutes of the previous meeting. If someone would like to move that they are true and accurate reflection of that meeting.
Seconded.
Moved by Councillor Watt, seconded by Councillor Abbott.
All in favour?
Aye.
Any declarations of interest?
Neil?
No. Public participation?
No public participation, Mr. Chair.
And we're not having a, thank you, we're not having a site inspection, so we'll get straight into the business item. DESC 11.1 to regularise a secondary dwelling at 52 Mount Street, Aberdeen. Matt, I'll hand over to you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. So this relates to DA number 72 of 2020. As you say, it's to regularise an existing building for use as a secondary dwelling at 52 Mount Street, Aberdeen. It's being reported to the committee because two submissions have been received objecting to the development, and the development commenced without the prior consent of council. Basically, the application is for, as I said, the regularisation of a secondary dwelling, which was placed on the site by the owner of the property without approval. It consists of a pre-manufactured building. The owner, when they engaged some tradespeople to do some work on the building, they asked the owner whether they had council approval for the building, and the owner then undertook some investigations and realised that they needed council approval. So they proceeded to lodge a development application. If we have a look at the site, there's a site plan on page 13 of the agenda showing the property at 52 Mount Street. And then we have plans of the development on pages 23 to page 31 of the agenda. So you can see the secondary dwelling or granny flat is located at the rear of the property behind an existing shed. There's an existing dwelling that sits on the property that is actually been separated into two separate dwellings. I think that's been in place for quite a number of years, I think 30 or 40 years. It's been operated as two separate dwellings. And then obviously this secondary dwelling would become the third dwelling on the property. When the application was being assessed, it was identified that the existing dwelling had been separated into two dwellings, which caused a bit of a problem with the permissibility of this development. So after some lengthy discussions, the owner agreed to convert the existing dwelling the two dwellings back into one dwelling, which would make the secondary dwelling permissible on that site. The application was notified for 14 days, and as I said before, two submissions were received, raising a range of issues. They've been summarised in the report. Bear with me a second. So the main concerns raised in the submissions relate to the number of dwellings on the property, the number of vehicles associated with the use of the property, and parking of those vehicles over the footpath and on the street. There was concerns raised about the condition of the property and construction works occurring outside of hours, and also the number of bins that were being left out on the street outside of collection day. So look, we've actually gone through and addressed a lot of these issues through recommended conditions of consent. So, for example, there's a condition requiring the kitchen and laundry, the second kitchen and laundry within the dwelling to be removed, which would therefore convert that back to one single dwelling. There's also a condition requiring modifications to the fence to enable vehicles to be parked within the property boundaries and off the footpath and street. And we have a condition in there to limit the hours of construction to our standard hours for construction activities. We've actually recommended approval of the application subject to those conditions. So if there's any questions.
As we normally do, can I go around each councillor and just get their thoughts on this one? Lee, I can see you largest on my screen because you're closest. Would you like to start?
Do you need the mic on?
Yeah, it would help. Yeah, sorry.
I've got a couple of questions around the dwelling and why they thought they didn't need approval. And is this because there is advertising for granny flats that's saying they don't need council approval? I spoke to you about this a little while back. Is that the reasoning behind it, or? Yeah,
through you, Mr. Chair, I believe that's the case, that they were told by the manufacturers of the dwelling they didn't need council approval to place this dwelling on their property.
What it actually is, they don't need approval to place it on their dwelling. What they do need is approval when they tap into sewer and water, I think. Is that correct?
No, they actually need approval, either a development application or a complying development certificate.
So as the community, as this committee, I think that we need to put forward that we do something around that, because people are buying them expecting that they don't have to have council approval, whether it's education or information, or I don't know, because if they don't think they need approval, how do they come to council? They're not going to come to council. I thought the same thing. That's why I spoke to you about it.
I think you're onto quite a good point there, Lee. Do you think maybe a media release after this, that a recent application that came before the development committee highlighted an issue where the community may be confused by the vendors of these things, and that you do actually need something? I think we could put something.
I think that's a good starting point, but what I actually think is the manufacturers shouldn't be allowed to promote it as such, and that's further, I suppose, that we need to take this further than that too, so that people aren't buying something and then they have to fork out more money for the DA.
Yeah.
Yeah. So can we look at that to see what we can do?
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. Any other comment before I move on to?
I have concerns about, once we've been brought into one, I'm fine with it. But that was my main concern. It's misinformation being given out, and it's not on our part. Thank you.
Thank you. Sue, can I move?
Yes, I wholeheartedly agree with Lee with respect to further communication, both with the community and the manufacturers. And I'd also just like to clarify through you, Mr. Chair, with Mr. Pringle. So the time restraints on doing any further building, that's a definite condition. So they can't make any further build. Well, rather there's a time frame. I must have missed that, the actual time frame.
Yeah, so through you, Mr. Chair, condition number 6 restricts the construction hours. So it's between Monday to Friday, 7 a.m. to 5 p.m, and on Saturdays, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m.
Thank you. That's my question. Thank you.
Can I add to that? Is that only why they're doing what they're doing now? There's no other further construction that's been the future, is there?
No, through you, Mr. Chair, I believe that's the case.
So that's not what you meant by time frame? They've got so long to do it, or did you mean the hours of the day?
So just to clarify, so they have removed the build, because it was quite confusing. So we're looking at a 2-dwelling property, which was already a 2-dwelling property. So the kitchen and the laundry in the main house have now been removed. So yes, to clarify further on Councillor Watt's point, all the building has finished, has it?
No, it hasn't. So the existing dual occupancy that's on the property, one of those units has to be basically decommissioned. So the second kitchen and laundry has to go, which would leave one kitchen and laundry in the main house, which would then allow the secondary dwelling to be permissible. So the secondary dwelling has to be completed, and the conversion of the existing dual occupancy to a single dwelling also has to be completed.
Yes, so the condition is that they have to stay in the hours prescribed by council. They can't work outside that.
That's correct, the construction hours.
Is that good for you, Sue?
Yes, that is. Thank you very much.
And on to you, Ron, Councillor Campbell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just have one. Just viewing the photos that we have, there just seem to be a multiplicity of motor cars and rather that tended to detract from the actual dwelling. Are there conditions that they will not be out on the footpath other than what is prescribed? Is there a condition, the number of cars that are allowed inside the house block?
So through you, Mr. Chair, there's a condition number 17 requires a minimum of 3 car parking spaces to be provided within the property. So that would comply with our development control plan. Any parking on the street, obviously it's a public street. People are allowed to park their vehicles on that road. We don't have any control over that. But obviously any parking on the footpath would be unlawful. Those vehicles should be removed off the footpath and either parked on the street or within the property.
Yeah, thank you. It's just that there seemed to be rather untidy, and this will address that issue of the untidiness when viewed from the outside. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Campbell. So I think my very brief thoughts on this are, that very possibly misled by the vendor or the manufacturer of this granny flat, and that in addressing the issue, council is clearing up a number of former miscompliances and sort of minor messes, and will, I think, overall lead to a much improved outcome, just at that spot. So do we have a mover for the recommendation, which is to approve?
Yeah, I'll also move, Mr. Chair.
I'll second it.
Seconded by Councillor Abbott. All those in favour?
Aye.
It's carried. Councillor question. Councillor Campbell, I'll go the other way around the room. Do you have any councillor questions for this meeting?
I know. I thought that the DA or discussion regarding the service station above McDonald's was going to come forward. Has that been delayed or has that been delayed?
Sorry, the DA for the service station next to McDonald's? Well, that was considered at the last council meeting. That was refused by council. But I have spoken to the applicant about that, and he's just looking at his options at this stage.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, I realise that. I thank you for that. I just wondered whether there was any further movement on that, or he had come back with a further submission. That's all.
No, through you, Mr. Chair, we haven't received anything formal at this stage.
Very good. Sue, do you have any for the meeting?
Yes, I was just wondering, I've heard through the community that there's a petrol station mooted for Parkville. Is that correct? Is that coming before council?
Yep, so through you, Mr. Chair, a development application has been submitted for a service station at Parkville, and that's currently under assessment. And I'd say that will be coming to the D&E committee and council at some point in the future.
And so so the community, so this is a surprise, I have to say, for a petrol station in Parkville, because it's just a little village on the highway. So the community's obviously been consulted with respect to that?
Yes, that's correct.
And so there's a submission process?
That's right.
And when does the submission process, through you, Mr. Chair, when does the submission process finish?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I'll have to take that on notice and just confirm the dates for that exhibition period. I believe it's on exhibition at the moment. Not sure when it closes.
Okay, thank you. And also thinking of petrol stations, service stations, the one in Aberdeen and Liverpool streets, I know that doesn't come back before council, but when is that being considered, or does that come in any capacity back before us?
So through Mr. Chair, that's the rezoning of the property in Aberdeen Street for a highway service centre. We did meet with the proponent some time back, and they indicated they would be submitting further information to council in response to the submissions we received during the public exhibition period.
And do we know when they will come back to us with further information?
I don't have a date at this stage, but I need to follow them up anyway. And as soon as I know, I can let councillors know.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Lee, any questions from you? Nope. And I don't have any either at this stage. So with that, I thank you, as I customarily do, for your input and consideration and help. And we'll see you later on.
Thank you.